Human, they call themselves. You'd never know, of course. They come in so many different shapes and sizes, mind forms and substrates. You'd never really know you were talking to one, unless they outright said they were. Everything from hulking machines, frail multi-limb bodies only suited for zero-G, and every combination and flavour of mammal, amphibian, even insect. All coalescing under one umbrella, often heavily modified using disgusting amounts of cybernetics and biomodification. They were once a singular species like most sentient life in the galaxy, hidden away in a distant arm. This isolation meant they went millennia with no contact with any other race, changing and diverging from themselves, until what was left was billions of different races, each and every one calling themselves human. Given this, they were not well liked among the rest of the galactic community. They were even considered heretical, if you ask the Seeker theocratic order. At best, they were tolerated. This seemed to suit them just fine, content with staying in their bubble. A very large bubble at that. Their territory amassed an impressive 4,000 light-years in any given direction, so it wasn't like they could be ignored, especially not by the free planets of Temabon. Being the closest empire to their territory, we dealt with their empires on a fairly regular basis. "Vocox, status report," the captain asked. I looked up from my console. "Nothing to report, my lord," I said. "This system is still clear." He sighed. "Very good. I'm headed off shift for the day. Make sure you keep Sendar updated." "Of course, my lord." He slithered off the command deck, leaving me and bridge attendant Sendar to start the night watch. Being a small reconnaissance vessel, we usually spend all hours of the day patrolling the border to human control space. "So, Ricky, how are you liking your new assignment? Most exciting post in the fleet," Sendar said, rousing me from a bored stupor sometime later. Being 3 years my senior, Sendar liked to boast about the few times he had actually interacted with a human. As far as the stories go, the first was with a trader, selling human-made metamaterials. It was an 8-legged aquatic creature that constantly shifted in colour and moved using a tank of water on legs, presumably controlled using some sort of neural link. The second was a complete surprise, as it appeared to be a small probe that, when brought aboard, hijacked the ship's intercom to explain that it was an explorer and not a piece of debris, and started throwing a tantrum when it was refused to be let go, wreaking havoc on ship systems. Sendar liked to inflate these stories, so I'm not sure if they're even true. "Oh, it sure is something," I replied, rattling my scale sarcastically. "It's like this most days," Sendar said, reclining at his post. "Every once in a while you'll get trouble, mostly colonists of some sort looking to start a colony, or a small upstart nation looking to expand into our territory. Generally telling them they're trespassing is enough to get them to leave," he continued. "Which is odd, since you'd think that something as ego-fueled as an upstart nation would put up a ton of resistance." "Honestly, I'm just glad we haven't run into any of them. They make my scales flip up," I stated. "I heard they can change bodies at will, like they were changing robes. To have that little regard for one's own body." "I'm sure those are just rumours. While it is generally true their mastery of cybernetics and gene tailoring is second to none, to have that kind of power is inconceivable," Sendar explained reassuringly. I wanted to believe him. So the hours went. We started a conversation or two, but mostly kept to our stations, monitoring the asteroid field in the system we were assigned for the week. It was several hours later when a ping was heard from my console. I looked at it almost half-heartedly, before realizing it was pinging some structure in the belt. I roused Sendar awake, who had fallen asleep at some point. "Wake up! We got a hit!" I exclaimed. Sendar sat up and groggily slithered over to the monitor. "Are you sure?" he slurred. "You probably just picked up..." He finally made it over to the screen, took one look at it, and woke right up. His scales rattled to audible levels. I better go get the captain, he stammered. He lunged off the command deck, but not before sounding the general alarm. And not without reason. If the sensors are accurate, the object is almost the size of the larger asteroids in the field and entirely artificial. This was unprecedented. Using long-range space telescopes, thousands of very large constructions have been observed inside of human space, some as large as a planet. But even a structure of this size would have taken many hundreds of thousands of humans to construct, even with mature automation technology. And there is no way you were sneaking that many humans past the 3 planets. Several minutes later, the entire bridge crew was assembled on the bridge. At this point, the captain had made it, and the object was within viewable distance. Once on screen, what he saw stunned us. It was a similar size to an asteroid because it was an asteroid. At least it had been. The entire surface was covered with crisscrossing layers that looked almost like the silk of a jumper worm, weaving its way into the valleys and over the mountains of the rock. Zooming in closer, massive numbers of machines darted back and forth, excavating rock from the asteroid and spewing out more of the silk, which seemed to morph and form shapes and structures all on its own. "What in Zarlok's name are we looking at?" one of the navigators uttered. At this point, the captain managed to stop gawking and started giving orders. "Rofia, pull us back by 100,000 milliunits. Egfux, open a standard channel, audio only." "Yes, my lord," Egfux said. "Channel open." "Human colony, this is Captain Brequis, representing the 3 planets of Temembron. You are trespassing in our space. We request that you halt the construction and present a representative." Several seconds went by with no response. "Human colony, I once again ask you to respond," the captain repeated. Just then, a head-splitting screeching noise emitted itself on the intercom. We all clutched our heads in pain. "Someone shut that off," the captain cried, trying to make himself heard over the noise. Mercifully, Egfux reached over and killed the connection. "What the hell was that?" someone asked. "My lord," said Egfux, "we're receiving a massive transmission of data. The computer can't make heads or tails of it. It's completely taken up the computer's storage capacity." It was then that a tremor shook the ship. Through the viewfinder, the entire asteroid seemed to shake and pulse. At that moment, a completely alien presence came over me, and somehow I knew the rest of the crew as well. An entirely foreign presence was in our minds. It conveyed a singular thought in neither a language or any feeling known to me, just a single, all-encompassing force of will. Interesting. All at once, the web of silk morphed and changed faster than should have been possible. Untangling itself on the rock, it shot out towards the ship. The sensors picked it up. It was travelling at roughly 0.125% the speed of light, accelerated in an instant. I braced for the inevitable destruction of the ship, and while there was a great crash, the ship was not vaporized. There was a panic as the ship lurched. It was clear that whatever it was, intended to pull us in. "Captain," Egfux cried, "something's going through the entire ship database. It's overloading ship systems." I saw us getting closer to the asteroid. "This is it," I said to myself. "Swallowed by some unknown force of nature, probably painfully deconstructed from materials." It was at this point where I saw a gravity well forming, a massive one. Usually displaying the presence of a ship coming out of warp, we were saved. Perhaps someone got word to the fleet. Except it kept getting bigger and bigger, and it eventually outgrew the signature of even our largest warships. I got a sinking feeling that probably meant it wasn't one of ours. The well opened up, and out came forth a vessel, if you could even call it that. It was the size of a large moon, a brilliant shining diamond, shining as bright as a star, multi-hued as it flew out of the gravity well. I sat, dumbfounded. Maybe the asteroid creature was too, because it had stopped its pulling of the ship. The center of the command deck began to boil, like you were staring down a road at the height of summer. Slowly, the effect grew into a sphere, which then slowly grew opaque. A blue tint spread across it, glowing as it went, until finally it had amassed into a blue sphere, faintly pulsing and shifting. An arm grew out of the ball, extending and waving around the command deck. All the crew backed away. From the end of the arm grew a face, a mockery of our species' own, devoid of life or detail. It finally turned the face towards us, and spoke. "Greetings. I am Provisional Representative Stromhigh in his mountain of the Stros Borealis Meta Alliance." It turned towards the captain. "Are you Captain Brickwicks of the Temenbron vessel Marduk?" The captain stood up shakily. Yes, I am he," he said, putting on a more brave face. "I see," he said. "Then, on behalf of my benefactors, may I sincerely apologize for what's happened, both to your ship and its crew." Looking around at the rest of us standing there, "One of our junior members does not have very much experience operating in baseline reality, and overstepped into your borders." The captain stepped forward. "You mean to tell us that thing is one of you?" He pointed towards the viewfinder. It bowed his arm head. "Yes, I am aware their manners about dealing with other species and your rather analog methods of communication leave quite a lot to be desired. They really should not have been allowed to strike out on their own until they recognized how things work out here. Once again, I apologize." It stared at the captain for several seconds. The captain finally responded. "What do you propose then?" he said. The representative said, "We will take our member back with us and leave your space. Though, if you don't mind, restoring the minor object they colonized will take effort. We'd like to just take them body and all." The captain balked. "Are you kidding? Take it. We want nothing to do with whatever you even are." It cocked his head. "We are human," it stated simply. "I am aware you've only really interacted with some of the more physically minded individuals and polities, but I assure you, they do not represent the majority of us." The representative explained this, as if it were a fact of life. It sent a chill down my tail. "If you are done with your inquiries, I will take my colleague and be out of your space. If your government has further grievances, they can contact us at the signal band I am putting into your ship computer. Thank you, and have a pleasant day." With that, the sphere of matter dissipated until nothing remained, leaving a void in the center of the room where it had once been. We watched in stunned silence as the diamond flew slowly over to the asteroid, and seemingly swallowed it into its titanic structure, like it wasn't even solid to begin with, before once again disappearing into a warp bubble. We sat there for a while, unable to say anything. Eventually, the captain managed to speak. "I need to speak with Fleet Command," he said softly. "Sendar, you have command." He then left the command deck as fast as he could, while still looking professional. I never looked at humans the same again. The implications of the representative's remarks. But then it hit me. That thing, that utterly terrible thing we had encountered, it was the equivalent of a child to them, or at least an irresponsible adolescent. Its guardian having to come apologize for them. The government never did try to air further grievances. In fact, they covered the incident up, told us not to speak of it. I dread the day the humans decide to come out and make themselves known to the rest of the galaxy. For how can we know something like that